It's surprising how much you can actually grow on a small block like this. We produced about 265 kilograms of vegetables a couple of years running from last year, and we're producing around 160 kilograms of fruit and about 800 eggs a year as well. So we provide for most of our own fresh food needs on site. Hi, I'm Richard Telford. We're in central Victoria, in Seymour, and this is our home, Abdallah House. We've been living here for about 10 years now. My family of Kuni, who's Japanese, and our two sons, Kai and Sen, who are 10 and 7. We moved into the house in 2010, but originally it was a small 1950s bungalow. It was the worst house in Seymour. And I was attracted to it because it was really cheap and I wanted to own my own home. And I could see the potential of being able to transform it into making it into a place where I could demonstrate permaculture in action and illustrate the permaculture design principles. So let's take a look around the property. So this is our backyard. It's a small block of around 580 square metres. So we've tried to make use of every available space. We're here now in autumn, early autumn, so we're just sort of replanting the garden out. We try and make the most of the space that we have by growing up and pruning our trees. We do a lot of espaliered trees here. We also had the raised garden beds. These are made using the tiles from the original house and raising the garden beds with a drip irrigation system. We've been experimenting a bit with the wicking beds over here so we can plant onto ground that is otherwise inaccessible for plants. Kuni, being Japanese, has encouraged me to grow vegetables that are a little bit unusual for here in Australia. We've got nagaimo and shiso that we grow here, and that's a way for Kuni to incorporate some of her culture into our living here in Seymour. So I've incorporated a greenhouse into the house design, and we use that as a way to for raising our seedlings. We also use it for drying our fruits and some of our vegetables, and we have a pond also in here which helps to regulate the temperature inside the greenhouse. The chooks are a really important part of the system here. We use them to help transform organic material into compost, which we use to fertilise our plants. They eat our food scraps, they scratch up leftover plants that have finished their life cycle. We also use them to manage pests in the backyard by letting them out for half an hour each day when we don't have young seedlings coming up, and they really help complete that cycle of fertilising and nutrient cycling. An important aspect of cycling nutrients here at Abdallah House is collecting our own human manure and composting it and feeding it back into the system. The way we do that is we use a bucket system, and as each time we make a deposit we add sawdust to help balance the nitrogen and carbon ratio and also soak up any of the moisture that's there, which reduces the smell to virtually nothing. Once we've collected the bucket, we add that to our composting system. We build it up over a year and then compost that for at least 6 months to a year, and at which point we can then add that to the garden. I actually do a secondary process whereby I mix human manure with material that we collect from our chook yard, and we let that again compost and the worms come through it before it's spread out on the garden beds and with the fruit trees. So this is our rocket oven. One of the reasons why I wanted to have an oven outside was because in summer, because we don't have air conditioning, it's really difficult to cool a house inside. So we don't want to be generating any unnecessary heat inside. Also, it's about enjoying the great outdoors. And so here we've got well, it's a standard oven. It's actually converted, it's a gas oven that we've converted into a rocket oven, which is a great use for something that was going to end up in waste. And we can use prunings just from around the garden to feed into the feed tube here. And we set a light, and instead of a normal oven, a normal fire which sort of burns upwards, it sucks the oxygen in and the heat and goes through a combustion process here, which burns off pretty much, is very efficient and generates a lot of heat from a small amount of wood, and comes up in here. And this one comes directly into the oven. It's called a black oven. And so there's very little smoke that comes up. But what does come out, a bit much like a wood-fired oven, it comes up and heats the food in here, and we can cook pretty much anything in here. We can bake, we can roast, we do pizzas, breads, pretty much everything except for you wouldn't probably do cakes and that kind of thing. Here we are inside, and this house has been orientated so it faces the sun. In the southern hemisphere, that's facing north. And we have a large amount of glass on the north side of the house. It's just past the autumn equinox. So we've got the sun starting to come inside the house, and that helps to heat the thermal mass of the slab. This house has a raised concrete slab, but only in the living room. The rest of the house is on stumps. The thermal mass of the slab stores the heat from the sun, which helps maintain a constant temperature inside the house. In the winter, the sun will fill up the entire slab, so it'll help create more heat inside the house. And in the summer, the sun comes up high in the sky, so that in the winter the sun comes down low like this. The leaves by that time have come off the vine, and the sun can come all the way in. And in the summer, the deciduous vine, the grapevine, is completely covered in leaves and prevents the sun from coming in, as well as the fact that the eaves come out a fair way, and so that the sun can't directly come in and heat the slab. So the original house that was here, the original idea was to actually pick it up and re-stump it and reorientate it to make it a passive solar design and extend onto it. But we found during that process that it was in such poor condition and had termites through it that we ended up disassembling it and reusing the materials for their best use. So here you can see the weatherboards from the old house have been flipped over and sanded back, and we've used that as lining on the inside. We've also reused the framing timber, which is a nice, beautiful hardwood timber. So we've used that for shelving throughout the house. Reducing energy consumption has been a big part of keeping our overheads low. Here we have a 1.5 kilowatt solar system that produces more energy than what we need. We use somewhere between 3 and 5 kilowatt hours of power a day, and we generate more than that and actually get paid by the energy company rather than pay bills. One of the elements that I really wanted to include in the house design was that of a cellar and food storage. We're actually here on river flat, so I didn't want to go too deep into the ground. So we've sort of set our cellar half in, half out of the ground, which gives us the benefit of the thermal mass, but also makes it easy to access and reduces the problems that are associated with groundwater. We store a lot of our fruit preserves, our beer and wine, as well as bulk foods in the cellar. The cellar also has a cool tube, a tube of about 400 millimeters in diameter that runs from the base of the cellar all the way through, up through the house and to the pantry and the kitchen where there's a cool cupboard located. The cool cupboard draws cool air that's down lower in the cellar and helps to keep the humidity levels more balanced inside the cellar. It draws the cool air through the pipe, and as the air is drawn through the pipe that's underground, it cools to earth temperature, which is around 16 degrees. And as the air comes up through the cool cupboard, it allows you to basically have a vertical cellar in your kitchen, which is a lot easier to access than coming back outside and accessing your food outside. We also have an upright freezer in the kitchen that's been converted into a fridge. And the way that works is we have a small controller that turns the power off and on in the same way that a fridge works. This allows us to use about 20% of the electricity of a standard fridge. We have the water tank on top of the cellar, which helps to maintain a cooler temperature by providing thermal mass directly above the cellar. It also, by having it up higher, allows us to have gravity feed, which we use to help irrigate the garden along the side here, and also as our backup for the house. So stepping out beyond the boundaries of our own property, we have this laneway on the east side. Originally this was a bit of a wasteland, and we've been managing it to beautify it and make use of the resources here. So we have rainwater runoff that we pick up in these channels, and which allows us to help store the water in the soil to feed the berries and grapes and kumquat that you see here. And the water is irrigated by both the gravity feed from the water tank and also from the runoff that we get that runs down through here underneath the driveway, fills up this large infiltration basin that goes around our summer veggie garden bed. We had a good harvest of corn and pumpkins, you can see here, that are still drying off. From there, it spills out and then comes around the front of the property. And then the overflow, if we have enough of it, comes out and irrigates these native plants that we've got right at the front. Further beyond the boundary, we have a creek, and I've planted some walnuts and mulberries over there, and I also help to keep the blackberries under control, and hopefully one day we'll get a nice crop of walnuts from there.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan and this is Antoinette and we're Happen Films.
Thanks for watching this first episode of our new series of permaculture tours. Check out the links below for more information about Richard and Cooney's place and about permaculture principles.
We're really looking forward to exploring what's happening out there in the world of permaculture. So if there's anything you'd love to see covered in this series, please leave us a comment below and we'll do our best to find an example here in Australia
or here in New Zealand. And if you find our films a useful resource for your own adventures in permaculture, please consider supporting us on Patreon. When lots of people contribute as little as $1 a month, it turns into the funds we need to make our next film, and we couldn't do this without that support.
See you in the next film, guys.